everybody. Welcome to the 24 Hours of UX. This is our number 11. We are your non-stop community-based UX conference. It's non-stop because it takes a full 24 hours, and it's community-based because the speakers are not selected by a central committee, but proposed and hosted by different UX community, which all come from any corner of the world. And here with us, they are coming from Budapest today. We use this approach because we believe in the importance of the local UX practitioner communities, and we believe that UX should be just as much local as it is global. That's why we have groups from New Zealand, Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. As I said, this is our number 11 already, and there is plenty of fun still coming. And we also already had a lot of great talks. Actually, we are almost in the middle of it. The group that is going to present this hour will introduce themselves later. So I'm gonna give them hand over to them just after these small instructions I have for you. So on the bottom of the screen, you have an option to interact with the audience with emojis, so you can react to anything by choosing an emoji. You can also send the messages through the chat on the right. And during the talk or in the QA session, there is a QA tab on the right as well, where you can ask for questions, and these questions will be answered during the QA. You can also vote for already written questions so that we can choose the ones that have the most votes. If you want to be invited on the stage for a question, for example, you can raise your hand. It's also at the bottom of the screen near the emojis. And maybe the group will invite you to ask your question in person if we have time. And last thing before I go, you can turn on the subtitles if you need. There is the CC icon also on the bottom, so don't hesitate if you need that. And that's it, I think. So let's start this amazing session. I'm handing it over to you guys.
Thank you, Jasmina. Thank you for the introductions. Hello world, hello people. This is UX Budapest, taking part in 24 Hours of UX. And I am Csaba Varga. I am going to be the moderator of this session. And I'm the organizer of the UX Budapest Meetup series, which is almost monthly meetup series based in Budapest for the local community here. And in this session, we will have a bunch of guests who you can see around me today. All of them are coming from design management background, either present or in past, based on past experience in previous companies as well. And our topics will be about product design teams, mostly how to structure product design team or how they do it themselves or how they have done it in the past. Also how a design team can fit into a larger organization, a product organization, and how that can work best. So this is going to be, I'm hoping, mostly a session about sharing experiences and war stories from everyone's walk of life. At the end, if we have some time left, we will also touch upon some extra ideas around competencies, special design rules, and design team cultures as well. So we'll see how that goes. The general idea is to have a 1 hour session of a fireside chat of sorts, and then have a separate 30 minutes Q&A session. So if you have any questions during this chat, feel free to drop in your questions on the right-hand side in the Q&A area. And we will get to those. So we will definitely have time for a bunch of questions. So go ahead and ask or just share any ideas that you have. So round of introductions. I think we should start with Csongor, who is going to be my aide in this chat from the UX Budapest side, and he will take care of picking the best questions at the end of the session. So go ahead, tell us a few words about yourself.
That's it. Thank you, Csaba. So I'm a co-organizer of the UX Budapest meetup team. We are also managing the Facebook group related to this meetup community. And I will be the help of Csaba today, and I will manage the questions. I would like to ask everyone to use the Q&A part for questions, because that would make my job and our job a bit easier in selecting and answering your questions. And also, please don't hesitate to use vote up option to select your favorite questions that you want to get an answer for. And yes, have fun, everyone.
Thanks, Csongor. So let's start with a round of introductions of our guests, and let's see who are you, what are you doing right now, where are you working, what your role is, to get a general idea and a bit of context about you. So anyone who speaks first, and then you can throw the ball around.
I can go. So, so I'm Gergely Hangyás, aka Hangyi, in the Budapest UX ecosystem. Currently, I'm leading the UX and design team at Which which means 4 product designers, 5 UX researchers, and 2 graphic designers. Originally, I studied graphic design. I started my career as a product designer at Prezi 9 years ago, and since then I was a lecturer at multiple design schools and tried freelancing multiple times, but I believe I'm way more useful in a collaborative environment. So that's why I went this direction. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm an opener co-working space, so if there are any weird noises, that's probably me. Sorry for that.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to say that if you don't have some too bad noise in the background, then feel free to leave yourself unmuted, I think, because otherwise, when somebody is speaking, this whole virtual thing has this weird feeling that nobody is there and we are sitting in a vacuum. And if there is some background noise, at least then we feel like we are having really a chat in a common space. So, Peter, how about you?
Right. So maybe I'm the odd man out because I'm right now based in Copenhagen and not Budapest. Oh no, maybe not. I'm not odd man out. But so I'm the senior design manager for Trustpilot, which is a consumer review platform, and I work on the business applications there. I lead a team of designers and researchers, so I guess 7 designers, and it's weird that if you are leading people, you sort of never know how many people are leading at any given moment. And yeah, so my role is I work together with each designer and each researcher and trying to make them successful, and consequently, I'm also working together with the product teams they are based in. I guess that's about it from me. How about we continue with Zsuzsi?
Yep.
Okay, I can continue. So hi, my name is Zsuzsi, and I am working as a UX team lead, UX researcher at RESSOURCES. Previously, Peter was my boss and line manager, and right now Csongor is my line manager. So it's a big family here from RESSOURCES. I am working and living in Vienna, Austria, but I'm from Hungary. And I think I actually have my 3-year anniversary with RESSOURCES this week. So it's a nice number. Who would like to be the next one?
David, I think you're left.
Yeah, you are playing a bit too much on the family thing, having the same last names. Maybe you want to clarify this. Yeah, but it's just a coincidence. So, hey, my name is David, and basically, I two pieces of information what explains why I have tried so many things in my career is that I'm a big believer in first-hand experiences and learning and experiencing, learning and practicing by actually doing. Plus, I might be a slow learner, so I've done quite a few things. Have been a coder, manager. I've been a director of user experience at several thousand people company, but also I enjoy really much in being an individual contributor, which I am at the moment, and digging deep into mathematical based issues, what we are tackling at the moment at Shapers 3D, which is a 3D modeling and CAD application for mechanical engineers. But I've been also a manager, led a team of 13 people, and I totally agree with Pepe that it's a bit odd to think about people like the total number of the team. I always had an issue with this. Yeah, maybe that's enough for now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And by the way, me, myself, I work at Kinsta, which is a managed hosting provider, and I manage a design team there. And usually, and full disclosure and honesty, I usually organize a meetup about a topic that I'm currently tackling at my work in my own life. And this is a format for me to bring some smart people on board and solve my own problems with their experiences. So that's what I did just now, because at my company, we are working a lot on organizing the teams right now. So it is very exciting for me to learn how other digital product design digital product companies are doing this job themselves. So let's do another round and let's see what you're doing right now, how you're doing that in terms of design team structures. So I can imagine that there are a few different ways to tackle this, I guess. So there can be different silos based on competencies. So like designers here, developers there, researchers to the other corner, that kind of thing. Or there can be like mixed teams with mixed competencies. These teams can be in different areas, different features based on projects and all different other kinds of combinations of that. So I'm wondering how you're doing that. We already had a very short introductory chat last week, and just based on that, I think we kind of doing this differently, like in all our companies in some ways or another. So I think this is going to be exciting. So please share how are you doing at your company? Zsuzsi, would you start?
Yes, why not? So I think it would be practical to start with how our R&D org is structured, because our UX team belongs to the R&D org. So basically we have 200 colleagues in the R&D org, and the whole organization is split up by product areas, which was defined by different parts of the big user journey we have. And all these product areas are from multiple developer teams, tech leads, area directors, and dedicated UX teams as well. So right now we are a team of 18 UXers, and smaller UX teams are dedicated for these product areas. In my case, it's a team of 5, including me, both UX researchers and designers, and that's how we support this specific product area. What is challenging? I would say that from area perspective, we are a dedicated team. But if you consider the number of developer teams we support in this product area, right now we support 11 developer teams. From their perspective, we are rather an agency. So we cannot dedicate all our time for certain projects. We have to slice up our working week and support multiple projects in this product area parallel. So right now, this is my biggest challenge, but we try to find a good balance for that. And maybe it's also interesting that we have horizontal roles as well in the UX team. So for example, Csongor is the head of UX, not dedicated to any product areas. And we have also research lead, and we hope that we will find our design lead soon as well. So this is our structure in a nutshell.
Let me ask just one thing. Although I want to say that I will always have questions and I will always go ahead and want to ask those, but I encourage all of our guests here to jump in and ask questions from each other, because it is not a series of one-on-one chats, but it would be really great, to just talk around as you like. But my question right now is, you started it with saying that you are having this R&D organization. Mm-hmm. So that is where the design is. So how does it look like? Like, I guess it is obvious for you that this is an R&D organization, but for me, it is already a question like, what does it mean that there is an R&D organization? How is it different from the other organizations? So how does it fit in the whole structure of the company?
Mm-hmm. So the R&D organization is all about to improving the product. So everybody who is worked directly with the product is part of the R&D organization, but there are different parts of the company like business and commercial who are not customer success, for example, they are not part of this R&D organization. So everybody who's working directly to improve the product is part of this R&D org.
Okay, gotcha. So then would you say that this is similar to how in other organizations this would be called a product area, product team or product organization? Or you have within the R&D product and then there is something else as well?
Rather the second example fits for us better. Yeah. So in the R&D org, there are a dedicated product organization, dedicated tech leadership, quality assurance, support, and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And so also a bunch of developers. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. So that also means that then in the product organization, there is a different thing to technology. So development as such is another thing besides the product organization. Is that correct?
Yeah, but we are working together as a cross-functional team. So every product area has dedicated developers, tech leadership, product people, and UX in it.
All right. I have so many questions, but I will hold back right now to hand the ball over, see one round, and then ask. Or go ahead, Hangy. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question about the agency model. So, because we were experimenting it with for just a short period of time with the researchers, and it's so the attention is like, and the focus was really not on the right spot. So how do you? I'm not sure about the complexity of the MRCs as a product, but now because it's super technical, so like getting to know all the details and the all the user journey related stuff. It's like it's quite a time. So I'm just curious, how do you manage to change teams, or I don't know, I'm not sure that you change actual teams or jumping on other projects on a regular basis. So it seems really like tiring and cost effective.
As I mentioned,
not cost effective. Yeah, not cost effective. Sorry. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, we are a little bit mixture of the agency and the dedicated UX team structure as well. So we are dedicated for a certain product area, but because there are multiple product parts and developer teams, we cannot be with them full time. So that's why we are shifting between different product and developer teams. But we know each other. We know how to prioritize between different product things. And in general, we can work on parallel products because I'm sure you know that there are different intensities in different product phases. So we don't need all the time researchers for all the projects. And that's how we try to balance it. We prioritize together with product and dev teams. And we can never get bored. That's the sunny side of it.
Hangy, since you were speaking already, then you could grab the ball and keep it rolling.
Oh, yeah. So our R&D structure is pretty similar to MRCs, like what Zsuzsi mentioned. So my experience is that like at least at Bitrise, engineering is an essential part of it. So because of the nature of the product, we build basically around the engineering flows, but we also, so we are just over a big team restructure, so it's a bit weird to talk about like how we work right now because we just kicked this off recently. So, but we are aiming to have a designer and a researcher pair in each of the cross-functional teams, which includes a couple of engineers, so like the practical amount around 4 to 6. a data person, a dedicated data person, ideally a tech lead, an engineering manager, and the PM, of course. We also have like product areas, like so some part of the product has a journey-based and journey-based project and a set of initiatives, and the others are more likely a feature teams, and these are covered by PPMs whose job is to have a higher level understanding on the actual smaller cross-functional teams, the roadmap items, and we are experimenting with the new thing there, where the principal product managers has a dedicated researcher and a dedicated product designer, so they can help to improve the roadmap on a higher level and just on the delivery level. So like the cross-functional teams, the product teams. There is a usual misunderstanding about this. We call it cross-functional teams usually. So the product teams in our company means the product managers primarily, and also the product includes all the UXers and the data as well. Yeah, we are aiming to have a dual track agile culture. So have a discovery with the researcher, designer, and the PM and the data person in advance before the delivery part. Yeah, it's a long way to go, but yeah, we're getting there.
Hangy, what was the main motivation, if I may ask, behind the restructure?
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask.
Trying to solve.
Velocity, purely efficiency. So we had a kind of an agency model before, where the researchers were working on like 4 or 5 projects simultaneously, and it was like a super good quality. But we realized that not just in the UX team, but in the whole R&D, that we are not efficient enough. So we had to refine it.
What was slow, discovery or delivery?
I won't play a blame game here, but both a bit. But it was really about the focus. So we had to find a proper goal for so like a focused initiative-driven mindset that we are trying to achieve now. And we were like working on lots of important projects, but it was like the focus was really all over the place sometimes.
May I have a question as well?
Sure.
So you mentioned that on the product principal level, there are dedicated researcher and product designer. Are they working only on the future or parallel?
No. I mean, that's idea. That's the plan. But currently we can't do that. But that's the plan. So having product areas that's covered by PPMs and a dedicated researcher and a dedicated designer and a dedicated data. And this, I would say, this is the first step, but they are way into the delivery as well right now because of like lack of resources, let's say. But this is what we are planning right now. When we can get to the next stage in our company growth.
So are they working on across product area features right now?
What do you mean by cross-product area?
You mentioned that you have dedicated product areas with researchers and designers, and I imagine that if you have a product principal with its own initiatives, maybe these are cross-functional solutions and features.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it requires lots of cross-functional teamwork. So on every level. So that's a must.
So it's not just about this principal level product.
No. It's definitely not. Yeah. So I think like communication is key within the teams, especially in research. We are always improving this, how to update each other. So because there are multiple overlaps between the initiatives and the roadmap items, so they have to have a clear understanding to see the touch points with each other. It's not always smooth, but I think it works quite well. Just have you just need a good framework. And we also like in the research team we have a team lead who conducts and keep the team focused as much as possible.
Awesome. Now, if there are no questions, then we can move on and see another example. So, Dávid, as you were asking, then you can also tell us about yourself.
I was expecting this. Yeah, I can give you actually 2 examples, because what you guys mentioned so far, it gave me an interesting perspective. I think this thinking about the product, whether it's a feature-based or a journey-based product, that's a very useful exercise. And in fact, my previous company was much like RESSOURCES, so it's a B2B software, also marketing and lead generation and stuff like that. So it was very much a journey-based software solution, and we were constantly in the design team. We were constantly trying to stretch the boundaries of our of the scope of individual designers to be able to go cross function and cross product, to be able to own and design the entire journey, not just a siloed a segment of it, which obviously resulted in subpar user experience and very visible seams between the segments. I wouldn't say we succeeded. Obviously, this is not just the responsibility of the design team. There is also a question whether there is a will and opportunity or time from the part of the leadership. But that was our main challenge, I guess. So that's when coming from a product team-based association, that's basically one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is this agency model, where all the designers are sitting together and responding to incoming projects like internal orders or satisfying internal customers, which gives good scope and good cross functional or cross product opportunities for designers within the agency team, the internal agency team, but it makes ownership difficult. It makes long-term knowledge generation and knowledge accumulation problematic. And usually there is this centralized partnership proposed solution for it, which was proposed in one of my favorite design management books written by Peter, the Org Design for Design Orgs, or the other way around. It's a very good proposal how to escape and solve this, how to avoid this trap, and to combine the two. But at my current workplace, the solution is a bit different. My current company, the product is very much it's very much a feature-based development, because it's a productivity tool. So there are some patterns that people tend to first sketch and then model the 3D bodies, and finally export it into engineering drawing and hand it over to manufacturing facilities. But that's a very high level and very generic journey. So you cannot really say that is it first that you first draw the boxes, then the spheres, or first the spheres, then the boxes. There isn't really a recipe which applies to every mechanical engineer or industrial designer who is using our software. So it's more like a feature-based product, but because we cannot really anticipate the order how these features are going to be used together. So every designer needs to have at least some basic knowledge about all the other features, because all these features are interdependent of each other. So, for example, I'm working on selection. Selection is everywhere. So all the 3D modeling and 2D drawing tools are reliant and dependent on selection. Selection affects everything. So we need to be aware of all the possible overlaps and interconnections between all these features, which creates an interesting situation. Is that every designer has a vast knowledge of the product and the scope, and we obviously became experts in some areas more than in others, and we cannot really change between those. There is some slow organic getting to know one or the other feature area, but it's not as fluent that okay, from tomorrow you are working on I don't know, file management or exporting rather than 3D body selection and creation. It's not that easy. So you could say that we are going towards the becoming siloed, but because each of the scope is so huge and so deep, wide and deep as well. So basically, this is why we aren't really getting trapped into silos, and also the constant awareness of what each of us is doing. I'm going to be curious what is going to happen in a year or so when I don't know, when we double in the number of designers. I'm not sure whether this system is maintainable at scale. We'll see. But at the moment, we are still a 100-people company. We still have weekly design critiques where every designer participates, where the CEO participates every single week, and he has a very good overview of how each of the areas overlap and relate to each other. But also, I guess most of us also have this kind of overview. The engineers are easier to shuffle around between areas. You could say it's just code, but I know it's derogative, so I wouldn't say that. But nevertheless, that's true. And the researchers are also assigned to a few areas. So basically, we are organized based on domains or areas of knowledge. And that's how these natural pairs of designer, PM, and researcher are formed.
You were already mentioning the size issue, how this will be maintainable at scale. And while you were talking, that was like my first or main idea that everybody is involved a bit in everything. Everybody knows a bit about everything. The CEO is there and the critic and things like that. Those all say to me, I'm wondering how you imagine this will be working in double team size or something like that. But of course, it can also be that, your product or your company doesn't need double team size. You're, fine as you are. And this is something that you can maintain on the long run. So yeah, I mainly didn't want just to ask you as a double checking. I also wanted to ask the others, what would be your experience with this or how you look at it? But David, feel free to respond. Sorry, I didn't want to totally cut you down.
Yeah, just one note about this is that, I guess the idea here is that we try to avoid middle management as much as we can. the downside or the challenge in this is that we need to hire quite senior people who are very self-dependent and very self-autonomous and motivated, and are good without hand-holding and too much nursing or these kind of things. But that's definitely a bottleneck.
So any experience about that from the others? Like, did you see something working at a certain size, but then you needed to reorganize because of scaling and because of a company growing?
I don't want to steal the mic from Pepe beforehand, but so like it's really interesting, like having a senior team. So in our case, I really love mentoring and I really love teaching, but I was pretty sure at the beginning when I realized that we want to double the company in every year. That sounds crazy, and I was pretty sure that we cannot maintain the speed of the delivery if we have to spare our attention on mentoring. So what I was aiming for is to build up a superb senior team. So now we have a super awesome senior team. But now, so at one point, I just started to hear like a few complaints that, yeah, I want to get into more strategical stuff and more high-level stuff, and the next topic stakeholder reached out to me that what if we should create this new initiative, and they are right. We are senior people and they don't want to do all day like just the interview and writing the reports and stuff. They can do it, and they do it because they know that they make the biggest impact on the product if they do this. But at some point, they're gonna start to get bored, I would say. So we kind of stuck in this size, and I really appreciate from my team that they are aware why is this happening. But I can't wait for the organization growth to get some juniors. It's a really interesting learning for me. But I think like, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think like just what you mentioned, David, about we've been in the same, and yeah, I think there will be a point. We are just so as far as I know, Shaper is just slightly smaller than Bitrise. So see you in a year.
All right, then let's hear about Péter, how they are doing this at Trustpilot, because I don't want to run out of time eventually and not get there, and then we can circle back to all the questions about each other's stories.
Right. So we are an 800-person company, and it's also depends on the company. Sometimes this means a large company, sometimes this means a small company, but I guess we are very similar to MRCs in size, and also vaguely the product organization is similar, I guess, like everywhere. So the good thing with us is that we are fairly product team focused, we have team culture. So like recently I was on this planning process and the VP of product asked that, are we doing projects now? It's like, yeah, we are not doing projects. We are doing product teams and OKRs based on product teams. And that means that we have a product designer in each product team, and it makes our job as design leadership easier because we don't have to think about plans for designers, for example, since it's everything is handled through the product team structure. Also, we don't have to think about headcount, budgeting, and all these sort of things because, again, through the product teams, these things are taken care of. But we also do have these more external experts, I would call them, but I guess they are similar to the horizontal roles, or maybe not, they are not horizontal. Maybe they are vertical roles, like in the MRS's terminology, like researchers and UX writing and design system team. And they are more on their own on how they do things. And like the others, we had some challenges with them, especially with the research team on how to make them more impactful. And now what we came up with is, well, it's a sort of internal agency model, but we are asking researchers to join product teams as full team members for a given time period. And that's how we avoid this agency trap. And they can have direct impact on the product teams, and they can still build their overall research knowledge base and repository and these sort of things. So one thing that caught my attention, what David, you said about broadening the designer's scope, and we are also trying to do that, or we are doing that. But not within the role, but when we are promoting people to a senior level, we are asking them to take on more or like broader things or more cross-functional things that like, given the problems that we see, like for example, we have one senior designer whose role is whose senior focus area is to take care on the onboarding for the business app. So that means that if anybody is doing something regarding onboarding, yeah, I'm using onboarding as the thing that we are not really sure what it is, but if there is anything regarding onboarding, then he's sort of taking the charge there. And me as a leader, I can just trust him to do anything there. And this seems to be working out quite nicely, but this is a promotion thing, right? And there's just so many senior topics that are there, so we can't promote everybody because there will be like a limited number of problems that needs cross-functional collaboration. So yeah, and our challenge is like, since we are a product team culture, product teams are just moving sometimes in the direction they think is best, and we have to make sure they are sort of moving into one direction. So giving them like vision that goes together, giving them stories on what is the strategy in a given quarter or year, and making sure the designers collaborate with each other, making sure the PMs collaborate with each other, making sure the engineers collaborate with each other. So these are the trade-offs when you are more a team-based culture and less of I don't know what would be the alternative, but there's an alternative, of course, if you are less team-based. And beyond teams, I guess some of you like talked about this, but beyond the teams, we have this vaguely Spotify squad and tribe related things. So my peers are the engineering director and the product director, and we are working together on our area, or we call them business side, because we have just two of these.
Question. Okay. I believe Trustpilot is or your work is pretty much UI heavy. Am I right? So there is.
Yeah, like we don't have a that complicated product. So we do have some parts which are fairly complex. Like we are dealing with fake reviews all the time. Fake reviews are fun. There is a very deep technicality on how we are dealing with those. So like bunch of machine learning methods and whatnots. That doesn't have too much design need. And we have some other parts which are fairly complicated. But yeah, so you are right. Most part, what we do is fairly visible. Like we have a large consumer platform, and all the work that is going there is like more or less UI. So we are dealing with pieces of written text most of the time, which are the reviews.
Mm-hmm. So what is the reaction? How when you promote a designer to a more senior role where they get bigger scope, what is their reaction and attitude towards dealing with the UI copy or the nits and bits of designing UI pieces? Are they start to delegate those, or are they happy to jump constantly between high level and low level pixel pushing and strategizing in the afternoon?
Right. So I guess that in our case, the distance between these more senior level things and the less senior level things, I guess, is defining a button a senior level or non-senior level? I don't know. Like sometimes I feel even defining a button, it's like you need to be very senior to write down what does this button do. But yeah, so I think a lot depends on, in our case, like we have a design system, of course. So you don't need to like there is less work on those very, very nitty-gritty details, like, and the design system guys are like figuring out like the right typography and whatnots. I feel like that it at our company, and maybe some others are like this, the more senior you get, the more of the facilitation and these sort of things you need to do. Like, and in our case, like whatever we do, we are very much dependent on the legal and on the marketing teams, because how we work, and that means that whatever you do, you need to have lots of alignment and lots of facilitation, and that needs usually like more senior people to be able to make sure all these very different people, these very different goals are sort of aligned on what we do, and that whatever product is doing is also doesn't impact the other organizations in a bad way. So yeah, so in short, there are no issues regarding this that somebody doesn't want to do. Like
this is actually a good point that you brought up, facilitation, and I remember that was one of the most sought after skill what I was looking for when I was hiring senior designers in my previous companies. And it's funny that I've been working at Shaper for almost like a year now, and it's a non-existent issue. So I'm wondering, and it was like a year ago the last time I was thinking about facilitation. So I'm thinking whether isn't facilitation more like a depth of lack of well-defined vision and alignment on from the leadership, which is paid by the UX teams as probably the biggest, or so I guess a good strategy is first and foremost, or the UX teams are one of the first customers of a good strategy if it is, because we need to operate based on those metrics and goals and visions and whatnot.
Well, that might be, but there are also different type of cultures in organizations, and we are a Scandinavian company, right? So that means that everybody needs to agree with everything, or like this. So getting to a consensus when we make decisions is fairly important. It's not really. Like it's not great if somebody just goes ahead and does something. So obviously within product work, we are doing this sometimes. So going ahead and asking for forgiveness later. But especially for higher initiatives, it's very important to have a common understanding with everybody affected. And that I think that's also a cultural thing. So
that's interesting. Yeah. I guess Hungarian companies are a bit more straightforward and direct in this kind of sense.
Yeah, like I highlighted the Scandinavian thing, but I think it's less about countries and more about internal culture, which might be driven by leadership and then what they're bringing from back home, but it's less clearly aligned with nationalities, I think.
Cool.
If I may add one more thing to this facilitation topic, because I think it's very, very interesting why we need facilitation skills for UX teams. Personally, I think it's very important, not just because of high-level strategic topics, but also for general products where there are scattered knowledge in the company. And we think that if we say something very basic, we think the same. I often face with the situation that we have to create a common understanding and collect these different scattered knowledge, and to have a good facilitation skills and to reduce the time when we can reach this common understanding point. Facilitation is the key for that.
And maybe it's also related. So you were asking about sorry, Zsuzsi, but building on what you said, is that you were asking about the complexity of the product, and our product is not complex, but our overall service is fairly complex. And maybe that there is also there something. So I also know that MRCs, the product is fairly complex. So you just can't know everything.
And now you were mentioning, you were talking about this facilitation thing. And if I understand correctly, it mostly revolved around facilitating conversation for coming to a consensus and having an agreement. But there is also the part of facilitation when you're facilitating collaborative efforts. So like a collaborative workshop to create a design and things like that. So there is that part of facilitation as well, or that you would consider something else. So that there is like co-designing or that is some different story.
I mean, I think that's what we are usually aiming at. That, like when a designer facilitates a conversation, it shouldn't be just, okay, now you talk. So not this type of facilitation and leadership. It's more about how do we co-design these things together in a better way. So when I say co-design, I broadly mean activities like design studios and design critiques and journey workshops, like whatever we are usually selling as consultants.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do you have any questions crisscrossing between each other's cases?
I have one to Pepe about you said the design system guys. So what does this mean? Is in your organization, either in UX or overall?
Yeah. At our place, so we had one designer who was working on the design system so far, and now we are changing that to a design system team. So which is fairly new. We are very excited about that, and we are really not sure how it will work. But we will have 2 designers and 2 engineers, as far as I know. But engineering hasn't made the final commitments yet, but sort of promise that will happen. And how they work is, so we have, like in our case, the design system is fairly large because we have like 3 or 4, I guess at least 3 pattern libraries, and then we have the general brand, which also goes to the design system, and brand team owns it, and brand team is a separate thing from the product design team, and the design system team, which in this case then maybe it's not the design system team, but it's easier to call them that than pattern libraries team, which doesn't roll as nicely from the tongue. And so they will be owning all the pattern libraries that we are working with and developing that and collaborating with the brand team. That's about it right now. I think others also design system teams.
Is it more like an engineering organization facing or a design org facing service?
I think both. Is that also an answer? I think both. So they are also working on the components and pattern library and also the UI kit, and I guess they will do some of the things what we use in Figma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's something that I can second. Like in our case as well, the design system is heavily used by the developer team as well as component library, and also the design team as well, as they use it in Figma as a design assets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just remember that in Skyscanner, that the main client of the design system team were mostly engineers, and the design system team was basically a tool to kind of unify all the several front-end libraries what front-end engineers were using, and it was less about figuring out new UI components. So the UI components were pretty much given, and they were already existing. Most of it, obviously, they had quite a bit of work to unify and develop the right accessibility, contrast ratios, and stuff like that, and make sure that it goes well with those system level metrics as well. But I guess the main client was still the engineering org.
I'm gonna grab this moment in time for to take a short pause, because we promised our hosts of 24 hours of UX that they will be able to jump in just 5 minutes before our session ends in the schedule of the global event. So this might be a moment for that, but this room and this session will go on and for another 30 minutes, and we'll look at the questions that came up in the Q&A, and I see that there is quite a bunch of those. So we will continue with that momentarily.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Ahmad.
Hi, how are you? How's everything? First of all, thank you very much for the amazing panel that you run. And really thank you very much for all of the nice information. Just for everyone, thank you for attending this session. Anyone want to stay here, more than welcome. We will go through the questions and question and the answers. And please don't also hesitate to send more questions. Also, please don't forget to go to the networking area, posting on Miro. We are almost in the middle of the day now, so be free to gain as much as you can knowledge through this amazing marathon. Okay, and again, for the UX Budapest, it was more than a pleasure to listen for you. Okay.
Thank you.
You are more than welcome to continue. Jasmine, do you need to add anything else?
Jasmina, anything from your side?
No, I'm okay, sorry. Yeah, let's stay for the Q&A. No, okay. I think Ahmad told it all. Thank you, it was amazing.
So you want to continue running the Q&A, or you want us to handle that? It's your call. What you want? You can see the tab.
Yeah, there are a bunch of questions. We will go through those, and yeah, we will continue with the session.
Okay, you can continue.
Right. All right. So. We will get to the questions, but first I just need to ask one more question myself. I'm sorry for taking the time from the Q&A session, but I think it will be an interesting one, because almost all of you told us a story or a setting that you're working in, which is using cross-functional teams in one way or another. There are these different teams, and in your organization, I'm sure that designers are working to some degree autonomously. So at least I'm sure there are two designers who don't know too much about each other's work, because they are working in some different areas of the product. So to less or more, so this is to some extent true, I think, for all of your cases. In an organization like that, how do you connect these designers so that they don't feel isolated, they don't feel on their own, a researcher don't feel like a single bird somewhere out there? How can you manage an organization and a culture for these designers gathered around? Anyone who want to jump in?
Can I start?
Sure.
So I guess we are in a lucky situation at the moment, because our product is something you can actually try and actually, which is useful even at your home. I don't know. I'm designing my terrace at the moment, but previously I was designing this bookshelf, what you can see behind me in Shaper. I guess it's a bit more difficult with Trustpilot or MRSys, I'm pretty sure. So that's one common point where each of us as designers can relate to the product, the common product we are working on. That's one thing. The other leg of these common ground is we have fairly extensive documentation on Confluence, which is hopefully somewhat well maintained. And we can all read that, and it's there if you want to catch up and understand what was the thinking behind some of the features. And the third leg is that we have our we have our ceremonies. Each morning we have a stand-up where every designer participates. Each week, as I mentioned, we have a design critique. So this, for now, it maintains this kind of feeling of connectedness, even in this. And I'm really surprised that no one mentioned in the last 59 minutes COVID. But so, like, we're in a bubble. But but even in this remote world, it worked so far to some degree. Obviously, we can't wait to go back to the office and start seeing each other physically.
So just to react a bit on that, so you're saying that you're having your DSU with all the designers every day, but in the case when a designer is dedicated to a team and working together with some developers, then I guess there's a DSU for that team in those cases, or could be. So it's either one person is sitting through a bunch of DSUs one after the other, and that takes like half of the day, or you need to like split your attention between different ones?
No, we are strict, and every stand-up is 50 minutes, and we are quick and efficient. And you don't need to, there isn't a designer in our team, as far as I know, who needs to sit through more than 2 of these.
Okay, any other angles for holding the design culture together?
I have a question, because we were experimenting for a while to keep all the 3 functions in the same meetings, but it turned out it's just really not working. So for now we only have these common meetings with researchers, PDs, and graphic designers on informal calls. And I'm just curious, like how you deal with this, because for now, for me, it seems to be solid, but maybe there's another way around. I'm not sure. But we have basically the same concept, like having some. We don't have dedicated design critics, but every team has their weekly sessions. And what we started to experiment with recently is to have a dedicated offsite, like whatever you call offsite these days, but when the team can focus on a given project for a full day, which we don't always have, like this luxury during the week.
Yeah, for us, well-maintained tickets, Jira, heavy use of Jira, and just keeping it up to date helps a lot. Streamline these meetings, so we can have the chance to bring up those things which affect the others, and I guess we prepare like a few minutes before the meeting to make sure that we prioritize those topics which might have an effect on the others' work and highlight those.
So that means like in these cases, only those participate who are involved into the given project, or the whole team, or most of the teams. Like
no, as I said, so we have one stand up for the entire design team, product design team, where each of the designers from each of the projects is there, except for the marketing design team, or the. Previously, we had the researchers also in this one, but we separated because it became too big and unmanageable. So I feel you when you mentioned this, and then we have separate stand-ups with our product teams, project teams. I could say so, but it's not really a project team because they are working on several projects. So like imagine 10 developers and 1 designer in that, and the PM in that meeting.
We have also.
Does this answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. Go ahead, Csaba.
I just wanted to mention that we also have daily stand-ups on a smaller UX team level. but we have a weekly overview meeting for the big UX team where we all present the topics we are working on. It's very important because we have always some sort of connections between different topics. So it's very important to see the progress and ask questions from each other. We also have design critique sessions where we invite each other. And we have a recurring Friday lunch meeting called Empathy Lunch, where we talk about not work-related things. And we also have dedicated Slack channels with different topics. So there is a very vivid communication between each other, and we don't really feel isolated. That's what I feel, at least.
Well, that's interesting, because then it may be exactly the other way around that I originally thought about this, because I was thinking that there are these product-based teams or area-based teams, and designers or researchers are working in there. And so they are disconnected from each other. But maybe then the question is the other way around. So if the designers are having their own DSU and their own rituals and everything, then how do they connect with the product team then? With the product management and developers who they are basically working on the projects together?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We are usually attend the sprint plannings of these teams. We have team level UX plannings where we invite our stakeholders so they can attend and give feedback to us, and we can prioritize our tasks together. So I would say that UX at RSSIS is represented in every level. So we are always there when relevant decisions are going to be made. So that's why we have so much different roles and people in the UX org. We try to be everywhere. It's hard. We have a lot of meetings, to be honest, but we try to be present.
Sounds good. Pepe, do you have something to add on this front? You seem to be either muted or maybe just me not hearing. Did the others hear? Nope. Okay. then you're out for this one. Now it's inaudible. Yeah, that might solve it. In the meanwhile, I'm looking at the questions because we are getting there. I promise. we will look at the questions in the Q&A area. Csongor, do you have an idea how we should go about this? I just sorted by upvotes now, so maybe we can look at it from top to bottom, or you have some other idea of which are the ones that we should look at?
There are so many interesting questions. There is no way to answer all of them. I think that the voting structure is really good, and there are some questions I'm really interested in the answers for. So I will steal your role and I will ask questions about what.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So yeah, but we can still have like internal questions. I have one, or there are two questions with a lot of upvotes. The first one is a mathematical question, so that will be fast. It is about ratios. So Lowy is asking, what ratio of UX designers to UX researchers to developer do you guys recommend? So what is do you have any ratio, or do you have any recommended size of UX teams versus other teams?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that your mic works. Yeah.
Back.
So you can start by answering.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about the designer to developer ratio. I guess it depends on the product. But for researchers, what I've seen is much depends on the maturity of the product you are working on. So like in some cases, if the product is fairly new, like you need a lot of research, like understanding what people do, what people need, like lots of generative research, lots of evaluative research, and so on. Once your product matures, like probably you would still need to do like lots of optimizations and maybe some like new innovative things or new generative things, but you actually need less of them. So that means less research. And like what is happening in our case at Trustpilot, we have like a 10-plus-year-old product with and the product designers are doing also research. So we don't need that much research. We don't need that many specialist researchers. And it depends on the product strategy. So if or the company strategy. So if you are if you decide, or the company decides that you need more like different products, then maybe you need more researchers. So like that ratio is sort of depends on what the company needs at any given moment. At least that's what I saw so far.
Yeah, I think it's also tricky, and refers back to what Pepper said, that it really depends on like what's the product and what are the engineers are actually working on. For instance, in our case, we have like a huge infrastructure team where we sometimes need some research, but not much. But in case of the customer-facing part of the product, we of course it's a totally different ratio. So that's why I think there are not a perfect number for it. It's like it really depends on the product itself and the organization.
It depends. That's right. We can answer that to any question, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a good way to try to start from the designer. Usually the designer is the bottleneck, I guess. We could safely say that. So the capacity of the designer defines how many discovery projects the designer can run at the same time, how many delivery projects. In our team, it's usually in any given sprint, which is usually 2 weeks. It's like 1 or 2 discovery projects, which definitely needs a dedicated researcher because of the rapid iteration and prototyping and testing it. So that needs a 1-on-1 ratio per project. So if you are working on 2 projects, or you are good enough to be able to drive 2 discovery projects, then probably you will have 2 researchers, maybe the same person, maybe 2 different persons. And in our team, it's usually like 2-3 delivery kind of projects which a designer can handle at the same time, which also means 2-3 actual engineers, developers who they are working with on a 1-on-1 basis.
All right. I think we in this part we won't wait for everyone to jump in because there are a lot of questions. So rather let's have 1 or 2 or 3 answers maximum to one, and just roll with it. But make sure that we will try to make sure if someone is not answering too many questions, then we'll point at you to answer one. Csongor, any next one to go with?
Yeah, so there are some Alhuwwari ones that we will tackle, I think, a bit later, because I'm much more interested in the conflict resolution part. So there are so different kinds of team structures, and there is a question about how do you handle conflict resolution over product features between product owners and UX researchers. I would like open this up, and I would ask that how do you handle conflict resolution between UX people and the rest of the world? If there are any, of course.
Now everybody is thinking about yesterday's conflicts, like, oh, but
Yeah.
nothing serious happened.
Usually when we are running into conflicts in this topic, either at my current team or previous companies, it was mostly about scope and level of quality, how good this needs to be, how cheap this needs to be implemented. And usually there is a conflict in this one that PMs usually just want a quick and dirty solution most of the time. I'm generalizing. Designers would like to create a perfect, brilliant solution for the problem, and then bring in a few other related problem areas and solve those as well, because consistency matters, and we need to have some good stuff out there. So it all boils down to, I guess, to a trust. in ourselves, in the team, whether we will be able to tackle and refine that issue later on. So then if there is this established trust that we are not just releasing something and leaving it there for ages and it will become embarrassing in a year or so, that we still haven't gotten back to it and refined those obvious mistakes. If there is a trust that we are going to go back and refine those and iterate, then there is a bigger willingness on part of design to go with the smaller solutions. If they are afraid that it's not going to be touched again anytime soon, then designers are very much desperate that this needs to be the perfect solution. So it depends on culture, I guess.
Csaba, you mentioned that you would like to hear war stories. So maybe I have one to share.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
I think a year ago, or more than a year ago, we had a challenge with a very strong, opinionated C-level person who thought that he can tell us what we should design and how we should do design. And he thought that because of our design system, our innovation capabilities are locked and we are not able to come up with future-proof solutions. And there were heavy discussions, and we asked him to give us a little bit of trust to show him how innovative we can be. And we came up a hobby project to show how we can imagine the future of MRCs from design perspective. And it was a big, big success. And we could convince him to not interrupt our work even more. So I think, as Dávid mentioned, it's all about trust. And building trust is a very long process, and we have to be patient and we have to be open for a lot of discussions and collaborations, and I think it can pay off.
Yeah, I can underline that. I think I had similar situations as well in some way or another that you mentioned when there was something going on. Someone said, "Okay, this is not going to work out like this," and we were like, "Okay, let's take one step back, look at what the problem is, try to define the problem, and then solve the problem, and then let's see where we go from there." And it took like a short workshop or a discussion to try to figure out what the problem is, and when we realized that what we originally started doing was just shooting solutions in the air, but we didn't have a quite good problem statement and a brief for the project. And then we went back, we wrote a good design brief, and then right away the solution were just fine and coming through and were accepted. So yeah, I think in conflict situations this can be key to go back and try to discuss what the problem is, and also then ask for a bit of trust to let's give us a few days. We will run with the problem brief, but that we have now, and let's see what's coming up then.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Agreeing on what is the problem we are trying to solve, being able to talk about problems without bringing in too much of a proposed solution, or because most of the time everyone already has a certain kind of solution in their mind, being able to exercise self-constraint in limiting our discussion to only the problem and not the solution is key. And it can be a great source of misalignment if the problem statement is not clear enough for everyone.
Right. So let's jump to another question. Csongor?
It's your turn if you want to find a question that you are interested in. And
well, I'm just looking from the top. So I'm trying to look at what were the most upvoted ones, because that shows some sort of interest from our audience.
And until then, Usman, I hope, so you asked the question about this conflict resolution. So I think that it's a bit different to manage conflicts between product owners and UX researchers. The nature of the problem is different as well. So based on my experience, I've heard it on a conference as well. I think that we were together there, Peter. It's a PM UX conference, and there they say that this is a lab story between UX researchers and product managers. We can just extend it to product owners, I guess. So I think that the key there is that product managers, product owners, and researchers really have to work together on what would happen next. That's my take.
Can I pick one? I would love to answer midweight versus senior designer.
All right, go ahead. That's the second one from the top, so you will find with that one. I will ask the other one above it right afterwards.
Okay. So Luhari asked this, and I love this topic. Have an interest in frameworks, in competency frameworks. Has been working with Csongor on some of these, and also Pepe previously. In my experience, I guess the biggest difference here is more like interpersonal skills rather than craftsmanship skills. So it's more like empathy, being able to understand what is the level of quality, what is the scope, what is needs to be delivered for that kind of particular project. And this is often misjudged by not as senior designers, that they want to prove themselves and deliver a super complex, super complicated solution, when sometimes what is needed is just a quick and dirty one. So this kind of level of empathy and being able to match the importance of the problem with an equally refined solution.
Any other ideas about medium and senior level professionals? Okay. Well, I just one thought that I have on this is that based on recent experience, based on the past few years, I have kind of like the idea that there is no one axis to look at seniority. So that is a usual thing that you also highlighted, David, now that seniority is more in the nuances and in the interpersonal skills. And I would mention also like motivation and proactivity and things like that there, besides like conversations and presenting and convincing other people and things like that. But also I see that there can be someone who is very senior and the product designer, but more UI focused. They might not see like the right problems because that's more like a UX-y way of thinking, like to dig out the right problems and see, the good like user needs and things like that. But if you ask them to make the design system right, they will build the brilliant system for you, and you will be able to work with that. But there can be others who will always, leave little things in the UI that may bug you, like not equal paddings and misaligned labels and things like that. But they might think that doesn't matter. Like when they build the engineers build the product, they won't build it this way. They will build it with the right building blocks the right way. So they don't need to focus on that. But they will see like the user needs very well. They will create very good interviews. And I think they are both seniors and they are both product designers, just with a different focus. So that's why I think having some sort of skill matrix or some kind of skill tree, so to speak, and visualize how people grow on that is a probably more important aspect to look at, and look at what is the tree, how the tree looks like from your company's angle and your team needs angle. Exactly. Because we need people on this branch and not on that branch, and that is probably the right answer.
And here comes the art of design management, where your challenge is as a design manager to be able to put everyone to their right places where they feel themselves successful and they feel that they are having the right kind of impact. Yet the big picture is a good quality product.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And this is, I think, something that you might, as a manager, need to remind designers every now and then, that you don't need to stick to one thing that you feel or that you need to excel in. If that's not something that you like to do, find what you like to do and excel in that one, because you will reach much more height. So don't feel constrained by something that you feel that you're expected to do.
That's actually a very important point, and I guess it took me personally quite a bit of time to be able to focus on my strengths rather than on my weaknesses. It's so much easier for us to see where we need to improve ourselves, and because we always get the kind of feedback from others that you are not good enough, you are not fast enough, or not thorough enough, or you are not using colors well enough, or anything like that, rather than just be okay with achieving an acceptable level in your weaknesses area, and put all your focus and emphasis on your strengths. That's a very important one, and it depends both on the manager and the contributor who is working this way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed to listen. I mean, I just made this. I mean, the competence matrix, the concept as it is, in case of UX at least, it seems pretty broken for me. And this mindset change, what Csaba described, is like focusing on your strengths and not your weakness, is not supported by a competency matrix, right? Because you have to make green all the cells on that huge matrix or spreadsheet or whatever, and motivation-wise, again, it's I think it's harmful on the long run.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really up to how you formulate this, like how you present this to the team members, and how you make people feel. So it might feel like that if you are very strong towards this gamification angle, that you need to check the boxes. But I think you can try to comfort your team in not needing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so like having a competence matrix and a skill tree or task tree, or combining the two seems to be a good way to go.
All right, let's jump to another question, because we are really running out of time. So I think what I would try to do, jump on two other questions and just give me one story for each, like not answering it thoroughly, just everyone give me one story, not everyone, just one person give me one story related to that. So the first one is, the topmost, like the upvoted question here is that in a company with low maturity, low UX maturity, where there is a low awareness of design team importance, so design is not considered too important in the organization. How do you convince stakeholders and management to create the ideal design team? The question says ideal design team. I think ideal can mean very different thing for different organizations and different people. But I think the general idea is, if design is not too important in your organization, how do you convince your management that it should be? Do you have any stories about that, anyone? I mean, I know everybody has stories about that. Just give me one.
You just quit.
I have one, but it's not a proper answer. So.
If UX is important to you, you just quit and find a company where this is important.
But maybe you feel important for the product. You think that this is a really good product and it could make very good use of a good design team, and you really want to make it happen. Let's consider this scenario besides quitting. Hangyás, you were starting to say something.
Yeah, but I was just joking around. Like, find a company where the CPO is an ex-designer, and then it's resolved.
That's the same. Yeah, that's what I was suggesting. Yeah, there are all these techniques, and I tried in my past organizing widespread good visibility workshops. or what Zsuzsi mentioned previously, hobby projects and trying to convince a few engineers to make it happen and prove the results. But I think it's an uphill battle, and for some time it's good for practicing your facilitation skills, and then you will enjoy when you finally find a company where leadership thinks that design is actually important. So I don't say it's futile and completely useless to try to endure in that kind of situation. You will just value easier situations or more aligned situations better. But eventually, I don't think it is possible from inside to completely change the direction of the ship 180 degrees. There are all these success stories out there that someone managed to do so. I'm not a big believer in these.
Yeah, and I guess maybe success stories are like survivorship bias, right? So there was one success for every like 1,000 where they didn't succeed in the end.
Actually, I was thinking that Pepe or Zsuzsi will jump in with some story from the research angle, because that comes to mind, that if you do some uninvited research and you show it to stakeholders or even CEO, and then they see like real human reactions to their product, and they will realize very fast that, oh, okay, yeah, we are doing something wrong maybe, or we should do more of this.
Yeah, I have stories like that. So, for example, when I joined RESSOURCES, I joined to the Vienna office, not the Budapest office. And as you all may know, the Budapest office is quite mature in terms of design because all the UX designers were there at that time. And when I joined to the Vienna office, I was the first UXer there. They had a UI designer, but they just used him in a way to tell exactly what to design in a very detailed way, and he did it. He did it really well, and he expected the same from me. And it was really hard to turn them into not dictating what I should do, but to take the ownership and turn it into a different kind of situation, which is more similar to what we have in Budapest. So what I had as a strategy is exactly what you mentioned, Csaba, is to cause some very memorable aha moments for them. To make the collaboration with UX memorable and build trust. And yeah, it's a long building process, but I think it's worth the time.
All right, and I'm picking the last question here. We are a bit over time, but let's do just one more. And it actually resonates with something that you just said, Zsuzsi, and it is also kind of directed to you specifically. And it is about ownership. So it says, Zsuzsanna mentioned you're doing horizontal structure, which I think is nice if each of the designers, researchers owns the feature. Do you have any suggestion on how to encourage each contributor when they felt demotivated to own the task?
Yes. So
I guess we can think generally about ownership, like how you encourage people to take ownership and do it.
Yeah, I think it's very important to find some sort of motivation, maybe in terms of growing or challenge to solve there. I think it's a very important people management skill to find a good fit between a task and the contributor. And for this, we have to talk a lot. We have to understand the personal motivations. Maybe a project or a product part is not as important for someone, but the people they can work with together in this project can be a good motivator factor. So I think that is always a key for a person to find the right project for them. And it's our responsibility as a team lead to do that.
Nice. Well said. Like, it sounded nice. Sorry. Any other stories around ownership that you can come forward with?
While you are thinking, maybe I can add one more thought to that. So whenever I feel a lack of motivation, I usually try to join to this project. So I think in some cases where you have team leads there to support each other, can give different perspectives and different point of view, how to give some sort of excitement to the project. And I think it can also help not to leave alone the team members with different projects.
Actually, I just wanted to mention something that might be just the flip side of what you said, because you were saying not to leave them alone. But I have some experience with giving people more autonomy can drive them towards ownership.
Yeah.
And it is so visible that until you give the tasks, they accept the task and they do the task. And as soon as you stop giving the task, it takes some time actually to dig themselves in and start finding tasks for themselves. But once they do that, it is very rewarding and it shows.
Yeah. And to flip it again, I like to give the opportunity and freedom to my team members to choose their own projects. So we usually have a long list of UX candidates, and I think it's a good way to find motivation in projects that you chose on your own.
Okay, I just had so many questions coming up in my mind based on that one sentence that you just said, but I see Jasmina coming into our session, and I guess it should be totally over because we are all absolutely over time. So
Sorry,
I just want to say as a final word, thank you for being here. This was really great talking to you all. I hope that we can continue this conversation in some other form sooner or later, because I have so many other questions. But I hope that it was useful and interesting for everyone listening to us. Thank you for the audience for tuning in. And
Thanks for the
I think
questions. Yeah.
Thanks for the great questions as well. We kind of steered from team structures, but still, I think they were exciting. And I'm really shutting up, and we are finishing now.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting. And please join us on any other session that is following. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.